Rahul, great to have you on the podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Excited. Let's dive right in. We have a bunch of questions today, and we'll keep it super conversational. But, you know, first and foremost, I don't think you'll find many people that don't know what Grammarly is. So we're not going to have you go into a big intro on that. But what I
It's a pretty
would
well-known
like,
brand, yes.
yeah, it seems like everyone has it in their browser at a bare minimum, right? So what I would like to talk a little bit here today is, Grammarly leverages AI to enhance writing suggestions as one of the
Yep.
pieces. But can you recall that first breakthrough moment when you realized that AI could significantly improve the user experience?
If you go back, we've been around for 15 years. We have a lot of users, as you mentioned. Lots of people use Grammarly every single day, which is awesome. And the thing you got to know about us is that we are very mission driven. We have a singular mission, which is to help people communicate more effectively. That's what we have been doing for 15 years. And so we harness and innovate in technology in furtherance of that mission. And so back in the days when Grammarly first started, there was no AI, at least as we know it today, but there was NLP. And natural language processing is sort of a rules-based approach to helping craft language rules and understanding of language. And so we harnessed NLP to help people communicate with more correctness because grammatical rules are kind of very amenable to NLP-based approaches. That's how Grammarly got started. As machine learning systems and deep neural nets became more prevalent, we started harnessing those technologies and innovating on those technologies to do additional things around communication. Things like, what's your tone? Maybe you're sounding too negative and you want to sound more positive, and we can help you change your tone. Are you being too verbose? And we can help you be more brief. Brevity is sometimes useful. And so we are always taking technology and innovating in technology in furtherance of our mission to help people communicate more effectively. And then AI, when it became this big moment a couple of years ago, we saw AI as this huge opportunity for us to really help people along the entire life cycle of their communication journey. Historically, Grammarly had been really focused on the revision phase. If you think about it, our users would ideate and think about what they want to say. They would put some words down on paper, figuratively speaking, and then Grammarly would come in and help polish that text. But now with AI, we can actually be your partner through the entire journey, from ideation and creation to revision and polishing, all the way to the reader at the other end, to help you comprehend all the information you're reading. So AI really represents that fundamental shift in the value we can provide our users. That's why it's so exciting.
I think what's interesting, though, is the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that they're leveraging AI to still, like if they drew on a line, right? Like they're starting here and here's the end goal and the mission that they are working towards, right? It's not just the AI component is not coming in and fundamentally changing that. It is just maybe either helping you get there sooner or helping you get there with more customer satisfaction, right? Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. I think really it does, the technology is a means to an end. I think everyone building AI solutions needs to recognize that AI is not the product. AI is not a solution to a customer problem. AI is just a means to an end. That's how we see the role of AI in our mission and as we go to customers.
So when you were training Grammarly's AI, was there anything that came up that was either surprising or unexpected?
It's interesting. I think there's been so much talk about AI in the last couple of years that I think people maybe tend to forget that while the pace of change has been incredible, we're still in the very early stage of a massive platform shift. And these platform shifts don't happen overnight. They don't happen in a couple of years. They take quite a while to fully play out. That's what happened with mobile. That's what happened with the move from on-premise to cloud. And that's what's going to happen with AI. So I just want to remind people that we're in the very early stages of a long transformation. So given that, what's interesting is, in some ways, the pace of change is incredible. Like, for example, when Llama 3.1 was released, the open source model, the most recent open source model from Meta, we had it up and running in our test environment within a few hours. So that's incredible that we can take a powerful piece of tech and integrate it into our solution, at least for testing purposes, so quickly. So that's awesome. That's actually amazing to see the speed at which we can kind of like be nimble and adapt as the technology progresses. On the flip side of that, it's interesting that each of these models are pretty idiosyncratic. At least that's kind of been my experience of it. Maybe whether realistic or not, my expectation was by this time, these models would sort of be converging. There'd be sort of this plug and play component to it. You could take a model and then swap it out for another model. But our experience is each model is different. They have sort of different mechanisms to provide safety harnesses. They have different eval criteria. They respond to prompts in slightly different ways. So these models are still kind of special snowflakes. And so it's not a hot swap type of scenario. Each model requires a lot of care and feeding before you can deploy it to customers. So that's been interesting. I guess I wouldn't have predicted that going in, but that's kind of where we are.
What do you say to the companies that, there's always a couple of companies that come out here that say, we are not leveraging AI. We are against it. We will not put, I think it's more for publicity when they start coming out and saying stuff like that. But, what are your words of caution or advice would you have to the founders out there that are maybe resistant to leveraging AI to help impact their business?
I would just counsel people to keep in mind the most important thing, which is you want to solve a real user problem and you want to do it better than anyone else. That's why we exist as companies. And if I were in anyone else's shoes running some other company, I would take every possible piece of support and help I could get in providing that, that great customer experience. So it's not about AI being being the be all and end all, but AI can help us achieve our mission and provide a better service to our customers. Why wouldn't I use it? Of course I would.
So with AI rapidly evolving, it seems like there's a new one of the different whether it's Llama or we just had on AI 21 Labs on too, and their model was it Jamba, and it seems like there's a new model update coming out quite frequently. So with AI constantly evolving, how do you envision Grammarly's AI transforming, let's say, the way we communicate over the next 5 or so years?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, it is awesome to see all the innovation happening in the model space. That is great. First of all, just as someone who's been in tech for a long time, it's just amazing to be in the middle of this big transformation and innovation. It's fantastic. It's a really energizing time to be in tech. So I'll just say that. Now, we are going to harness AI, and I really think AI is going to help us transform the value we can provide to our users. Just to give you a sense of what that might look like, 5 years from now, here's how we spend our days. And I can't speak for you, but I'll speak for myself, and maybe this resonates for you. I spend most of my day communicating with other people in various formats, in various applications. I'm writing documents, I'm in messaging apps, I'm responding to comments in email, I'm maybe doing some line of business applications like Salesforce. And data suggests that we are context switching 1,200 times a day on average. I might be a bit above the average, but because I feel like I'm constantly moving from task to task. And so we are living in this world of fragmented tools. We're communicating a lot with those tools, and we're context switching a lot. Now, let's imagine that AI gets added to every one of those fragmented tools. You've driven the cost of content creation down to close to zero, which means there's going to be a lot more content getting created. And so I'm just thinking of myself at the receiving end of all of this content. And I'm like, who's going to read all this stuff? Like, I don't have the time in the day to read it. How is that going to make me more productive? I don't think it is. And I actually believe that is not the pathway to achieve these productivity gains that people are predicting from AI, which haven't yet really materialized. I mean, people are still trying to figure out the path forward. Instead, I believe that we have a solution, which is it's not about more content. It's not about sticking more content into every single text box or every single application. It's really about stitching together and synthesizing content across these different applications because you're actually doing these workflows that span many, many applications. And so much of what we do is cutting and pasting context. Maybe not literally, like cutting and pasting, Command C, Command V, but figuratively. Like I'm reading this long update on some project, and then I want to summarize it for the board or for the leadership team. And so I take the context and I kind of make it fit for purpose in this new place for someone else to read. And so Grammarly can help with that because we are with you through all of these different apps that you're in, through this entire life cycle and workflow, and we can bring that context along with you. So imagine like one of the wonderful use cases that would make my life a lot better would be I'm sending an important email, let's say to an investor, and I'm going to give them an update on some big product launch that is happening. I've been digging into this product launch. I'm looking at Slack messages, I'm reading documents, I'm in email exchanges back and forth, and now I'm ready to send this email. Now, Grammarly's been with me through all of these different interactions as I'm digging in. Like, what's the product? Talk to the product team. What's a go-to-market plan? Talk to the marketing team. Grammarly's seen all of this context. Now I'm ready to send this email out, and I say, hey, Grammarly, help me send an email out to this investor about this product launch. And Grammarly can take all of this context, synthesize it, understand what it means to send an email out to this particular group of people, like maybe be succinct, don't write a novel, be concise. And it kind of creates exactly the right context at the right moment for that audience. That's where productivity gains will come from. It'll come from synthesizing. And frankly, I think that's exciting from a Grammarly perspective because I think this product will be transformative. But also, I think it's going to be great for just how we go about our day-to-day work. Like, we can actually be in flow state a lot more. We can remove some of the drudgery that kind of just is part of our day-to-day lives as we kind of context switch 1,200 times plus times a day. And that's the future we want to bring about. That's the journey we're on at Grammarly.
So in order for Grammarly, though, you understand the user, right? Each particular user very well, right? Because most people's experience with Grammarly is having it in the browser, right, where it's on the website, it's doing this. So I would like to talk a little bit about, when it comes to like data privacy and things like that, because this is what we always hear about with AI. It's what happens to my data, and how do we make sure that AI is being ethical? So what is your thoughts on, would love to hear, how Grammarly's AI handles that information. You don't have to get into I know there's certain things you can't say, but I know our audience would love that I asked that.
Yeah. This is a super important question, so I'm glad you raised it. Grammarly works in all the places that we work. It's not just in your browser, but we also have a native application for Windows and Mac. So we can work inside native applications like Microsoft Word or Slack. So we're in all these different places. And so we need to take our responsibility as a responsible steward of user data very, very seriously. So user trust is just fundamental to how we operate. That's been true from the beginning. This actually predates the recent AI wave. So it's good that we've kind of built these principles and it's really baked into how we approach and build a company. So there are many different aspects to this, but like, for example, one of them is just be very clear on the data access controls you have, internal controls. A great way to make sure that you're on the right path is to get external certifications and attestations. Because, like, for example, we have SOC 2 compliance, we have ISO compliance, we have HIPAA compliance, and actually to get those compliance requirements in place requires you to make sure that you're actually doing all the right things in terms of data governance and data compliance. So we got those things, and that's great. That's not enough, though. I think it's really important to make sure that you're keeping on top of all the evolving threat vectors with any kind of user data, sensitive user data. There's always an emerging class of threat vectors. The best way to guard against that is to have really it's a defense in depth. Have a multi-layered security program so that there's multiple failure modes, there's multiple points at which there's kind of like, if one thing fails, there's 3 fail safes to keep the data safe. And so we've been investing in this for a decade, not just all the safety measures, but things like red team exercises where we actually bring in people to find vulnerabilities in our system, things like bug bounty programs. So we've been investing in this for a long time. It's very hard to do this as an afterthought. So this is something we've really got to kind of bake in from the ground up. Then it's about user control. Let's make sure users feel like they're in control, whether individuals or organizations, they're in control of how their data is used, and they can decide what their data is used and to what purpose and to what end. And we provide users control. We provide every single Grammarly user these controls. Free, paid, enterprise, everyone has access to those controls. And finally, I think it's really about making sure that your incentives are aligned with your users' incentives. I think maybe this is the Uber challenge, is that we are, as a business, as a company, make money when users see value in our product and they pay for the offering. We have no other source of revenue, which means we're not looking to consolidate data and get into the advertising business. We have a commitment to never sell user data. And we are constraining how we grow and develop as a company as a result of these promises. But to me, that's the cleanest way to make sure we are never going to go off the straight and narrow path. Our incentives, our users' incentives are 100% aligned. That'll never change.
So great response, by the way. Thanks so much for sharing. One of the other things I know the audience wanted me to touch upon is when people often hear about AI, they worry about AI replacing all of these human jobs. But, Grammarly's AI enhances human capabilities rather than replaces them. So let's talk about how, a lot of people, will AI replace certain jobs? Yes, of course, right? That's going to happen. But how AI should still probably be seen more as augmenting like how we work versus outright replacing humans. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's exactly how we see it, and very much building the product to make sure that we are a tool to augment human potential, not displace, not replace. I think AI, when it's used well, really can level everyone up. Like we can all sort of do our jobs better, show up better when AI can help us, develop new capabilities. That's what we're building towards, and I think that's the outcome I'd like to see. Especially given the domain that we're in, we're helping people communicate better. Communication is so fundamental to who we are as humans that I want to make sure that as we scale the product, that we never lose sight of that core reality, and that always grounds us, that our users, the human beings who are using the product, they're at the center of this. They're why we get up out of bed every morning and do what we do. So we've got to make them look great. That's what we're here for. And that's what we're building the technology to do.
Well, I ask the same question of everyone that comes on. I want to ask you as well. But
Sure.
So since you took over as CEO of Grammarly, what is one moment that maybe at the time made you want to cry, but you can laugh about it now?
I think AI is moving very, very quickly. AI is a very disruptive, positive, but disruptive force. It's going to completely transform how we do our work. Not going to happen overnight, but it's going to, we look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll be shocked at a world that didn't have AI baked into it in our day-to-day workflow. It's kind of like when I tell my kids, there was a time before iPads and iPhones, and they just kind of can't comprehend that. I think AI is going to be in a very similar state, 10 years down the line. And so that's exciting. It does require us to be very, very clear-sighted about what the technology enables us to do, what new value we can create for our users. And we shouldn't shy away from changing and transforming how we do things as a company, especially a company that's been around for a while. Let's recognize what the pathway is to the future. One of the things I've always learned in my career is you don't fall in love with the solutions, you fall in love with the problems, because the solutions may change over time. So as long as you have a problem that you think is a meaty, interesting, meaningful problem to solve, stay focused on that. And the way you solve it changes over time. And we have a really, really critical and important problem, helping people communicate better. That's awesome. I'm energized by solving this problem. But the way we solve it will change, and it is changing as we speak in real time. And, that's, there's kind of change, but it's also exciting. So you kind of
Now,
have to keep that in your mind, that kind of that balance.
now you've done a great job of leading a company through, following this is the mission, this is where we're heading. Obviously, AI is a tool that will enhance the user experience. So let's do it. What advice would you have for other leaders out there in both implementing AI where applicable, but then also getting your team on board and excited and letting them know that this is helping us continue towards our mission?
I think it's really it's important to be grounded in the mission. Like, why are we doing this problem? Why are we working on this problem? Why is it worthwhile to solve this problem? If we were able to solve it well, how would the world be a better place? What opportunity does it create? And if you visualize that future state, you've got to feel excited about that future state. If you visualize success and you're like, yeah, it's kind of like take it or leave it, it's a sign you got to go back to the drawing board. So for us, we envision a future state, kind of like what I described to you earlier, where we can take the drudgery out of our day-to-day work, we can synthesize content, help you really communicate more effectively at the right moment, at the right time, to the right people. That's a future we all get inspired by. And so that's what drives us. So find your purpose, find your North Star, because there's a lot of turbulence, there's a lot of change. And so you've got to just make sure you have an anchor, and that mission for us is the anchor. And then, I think really stay focused on solving real user problems. Often I see that it's easy to get, especially at this moment of a lot of hype around AI. We kind of go through these hype cycles. It's easy to get distracted. You can look at what your competition is doing, or you can look at what other people are doing. You're like, oh my God, look at them. I should do what they're doing. And every brain cycle you spend thinking about what someone else is doing is a brain cycle you don't spend thinking about how you can solve a user problem. And that's generally not a good thing. Stay focused on solving user problems. And if you're clear and inspired by solving that user problem, you should be in a good spot.
I want to quickly hit upon that. It seems like the best companies do a really good job at putting the blinders on in terms of, okay, this is our core focus. We're going to stay focused. We're not going to worry about what our competition is doing. I guess you could probably put Apple in there, right? Like, it seemed like Apple was so quiet on doing anything with AI, and then all of a sudden you start to hear about these announcements. But from an outsider's point of view, right, and from the consumer, it seems like they were behind substantially, right? How do you put those blockers on as a leader? But how do you also put the blocker? It's not just you, right? It's the whole team, and staying focused on, let's not worry about the competition. Let's continue to do our thing.
It's really like we have company all hands meetings, and at every all hands meeting, we talk about our long-term strategy, and we really ground ourselves on what are we trying to accomplish, and are we making progress towards our long-term goals? And as long as we can stay grounded in that, and we have confidence that that future is something we can bring about, that we have some unique assets and advantages in winning that future state, that's really the key thing to keep us all grounded, not get distracted. Sometimes it is, just human nature. You see a bunch of stuff in the press and you kind of think about what that means. And that's fine. It's not like you want to be blind to what's happening. But like, if you take Apple as an example, or you take, the deployment of LLMs as an example, LLMs are very powerful pieces of tech. They do a lot of different things. You can search the web using an LLM. You can generate recipes. You can write code. We don't do all those things. We use LLMs for the singular purpose of helping people communicate more effectively. So imagine that we take the best-in-class LLM, let's say it's Llama 3.1, we fine-tune it on all of our user data for our use cases. Then we have a best-in-class LLM to support our mission to help people communicate better. That's something we can get behind. That's something we can stay focused on, because we can help our users with the work that we're doing.
Last question, Rahul. What's
Yeah.
something you can share with us here today in terms of what's next for Grammarly? I know there's certain things you probably can't say, but in terms of what you can, what's next?
Yeah, one of the interesting things you're going to start seeing from Grammarly in the coming months is we are really looking at the opportunity that AI creates as a way for us to be with our users through the entire communication journey. And so one of the ways this is going to manifest itself is we're going to break ourselves out of the text box and we're going to be in an always available state. So users can call us up at any point and ask us to do things on their behalf. And so we are going to have a lot more presence and visibility across the entire life cycle of a user's communication journey, because when you're then ready to write that piece of communication that is very important and consequential, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a place where you and Grammarly have worked together to build up that context to inform this email or document that you're about to start writing on. And I think that's going to be really exciting and different from what you've seen before.
Well, I want to thank you once again for joining us here today, sharing some thoughts. Excited for any future conversations and to follow along with Grammarly. But thanks again for joining us here today.
Thanks, Jared. It was great to be here. Thanks for the time.